In July 1954, a man stepped off a plane at Tokyo's Haneda Airport with a passport from a country that never existed. Immigration detained him. His credentials were flawless, his answers consistent. He vanished from a locked room overnight. In 1981, a teenage boy described a radar dome in Long Island capable of folding time. That dome was decommissioned in secret. No public records remain. In 2007, a suitcase surfaced in Berlin containing Polaroids of a skyline that didn't yet exist. These aren't rumors, they're case files. Someone, or something, has been moving through time, unnoticed, or perhaps deliberately hidden. At least 10 of them have left behind traces, not theories, evidence. They were ignored, denied, or erased. But if even one was real, history isn't linear anymore. Some of them said they'd be back. Time is treated as absolute. Forward only, linear, unbroken. But every known law of physics allows for violations, loopholes, gravitational singularities, closed time-like curves. In 1937, Einstein wrote privately that if general relativity holds at all scales, then time loops may be mathematically inevitable. That letter was suppressed until 1991. Since then, incidents have surfaced, scattered, disputed, often dismissed, but not discredited. They follow a pattern. An individual appears or disappears under impossible conditions. A photograph includes an anachronistic device. A witness reports knowledge of future events with uncanny accuracy. In almost every case, official silence, sudden disappearance, or psychiatric dismissal. These 10 stories span 9 decades, 6 continents, and they all share 3 traits. 1. Physical evidence incompatible with their claimed time. 2. Immediate suppression by local or federal authorities. 3. Personal consequence. Exile, death, or erasure. These are not random curiosities. They suggest something coordinated, perhaps even sanctioned. Some point to military experiments, others to quantum anomalies. But a few, just a few, imply something else. Something intentional. In one case, a man described future landmarks that weren't built until 3 decades later. In another, a child's sketchbook from 1965 includes a device that now exists, patented in 2021. Who were these people? Are they liars, victims, or operatives? The deeper we look, the harder it becomes to dismiss them as fiction. And once you cross-reference their details, names, dates, coordinates, a strange network forms. Time travel may not be theoretical. It may already be operational. It was a simple scene, captured in black and white. In 1928, outside Grauman's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, a woman walks past the camera. She's holding something to her ear, talking, pausing, smiling. No one else reacts. The footage remained unseen for decades. It wasn't a film. It was behind-the-scenes B-roll for the Charlie Chaplin premiere of The Circus. But in 2004, filmmaker George Clark digitized the reel for a DVD bonus segment. When he slowed the frame rate, something broke the illusion. The woman is holding a device the size and shape of a modern mobile phone. She speaks into it, tilts her head, then walks out of frame. At 60 FPS playback, her hand motions match the ergonomic behavior of cell phone users, decades before such habits existed. There were no portable radios in 1928. No known hearing aids shaped like that. Tech historians confirmed that the closest analog, Siemens Carbon hearing devices, were larger, needed wired packs, and required 2 hands. Yet the object she held fit in her palm. She used it with precision. Analysts ran motion tracking and lip-read reconstructions. The pattern suggested she was engaged in 2-way conversation. A 2005 forensic breakdown found no frame tampering, no insert editing, and no object replacement. It wasn't an error. It was in the reel. 2 months after Clark's online release, the original 60mm reel was reportedly lost during transit between archival facilities. The restored version was pulled from later DVD box sets. Warner Brothers made no comment. Clark was invited to a private media technology briefing in Belfast in early 2006. He has not uploaded since. The public upload of the footage remains, but only in compressed form. The HD version was struck by multiple takedown notices. For a moment, one person, an unknown woman in a 1928 crowd, behaved like someone from decades ahead. And then she disappeared from history. No name, no follow-up, no identity match in crowd records. George Clark declined all interviews after 2008. He missed his brother's funeral that year. No one knew where he went. In July 1954, a routine customs check at Tokyo's Haneda Airport became a case file that remains unsolved. A Caucasian man in a gray business suit presented his passport. The country of origin? Tord. Officials paused. There was no such nation. The man seemed confused, insisting that Tord was a sovereign state between France and Spain. He pointed to it on a map. He spoke French, Japanese, and several regional dialects fluently. He carried legal currency from multiple European nations. His passport bore authentic-looking stamps, but Taured did not and has never existed. His documents were examined by customs officials, then escalated to airport security. The passport was leather-bound, weathered, and matched international formats. Stamps from Tokyo, Paris, and Bucharest appeared consistent in ink and age. Visas were signed. Nothing looked forged. When pressed, the man described corporate relations, hotel chains, and trade routes involving Taured. Several companies he named were real. Others weren't, but appeared plausible. He held traveler's checks issued from a bank that no longer existed, or had never existed at all. Hotel reservation records in Tokyo showed a booking under his name. A phone call to the hotel confirmed it, but no one by that name had checked in. He was detained in a secure hotel room while officials investigated. 2 guards posted outside. The next morning, he was gone. The room was locked from the inside. No fire escape, no ventilation duct wide enough. He had vanished. The documents, passport, currency, papers, disappeared from the security archive in 1960. No explanation was provided. Airport interrogation logs were declassified in 1998, but heavily redacted. Several pages were missing entirely. No international agency ever claimed him. No embassy responded. The Japanese officer who filed the original report was diagnosed with paranoid delusions in 1956 and removed from duty. His son later claimed the officer couldn't stop drawing maps of countries that weren't real. He never went home. The officer's report was classified until 1998. In 1981, a teenage boy named Duncan Cameron claimed he had been part of a secret U.S. military program on Long Island. He said he had been recruited, not for intelligence, not for weapons, but for time travel. The base was Montauk Air Force Station. Officially, it was used for radar surveillance. But Duncan described something buried beneath, a laboratory operating under Project Phoenix the Sioux. He said he'd seen men disappear in front of him. He said he'd been forced to focus on images of dates and then woken up days later, covered in salt water. He said they were opening time, and he was proof. In 1992, over a decade later, Duncan published his memoir. It included schematics of the SAGE radar dome, diagrams that would later match blueprints declassified in 2003. He described machines using harmonic synchronization, language that mirrored frequency modulation concepts not made public until the HARP disclosures. In one chapter, he wrote that they fold the light to break the surface. That phrase appeared again in a DARPA field note from 1984, later obtained under FOIA litigation in 2011. He named scientists, locations, and test logs. Two of the people he described later turned up in unrelated black-budget projects. He drew sketches of rooms, chairs, and instruments. One of those chairs, equipped with electromagnetic coils and a spinal conductor, was discovered in a private auction house in 2006. The lot was purchased by an anonymous defense contractor and never seen again. After publishing, Duncan was dismissed as delusional, but the military issued no formal statement. His descriptions were never directly challenged. In 1997, all remaining physical copies of the memoir were pulled from shelves by the publisher, citing rights conflicts. The original manuscript vanished. Duncan stopped speaking publicly in 2001. His last interview ended abruptly when asked about coordinates he'd drawn in the book. His house in Babylon, NY, was foreclosed in 2004. No forwarding address was recorded. A neighbor reported hearing static voices from inside the house for 3 nights after it was vacated. He missed his mother's funeral that winter. He named one location that reappears in Case 8. In September 2007, an unclaimed suitcase was found at Berlin-Tegel Airport. Security flagged it due to lack of tags and signs of tampering. Inside were Polaroids, dozens of them. Most showed ordinary street scenes, but some did not. Several featured the Berlin skyline, photographed from known public angles. The problem? The structures captured in them did not exist, yet they were later confirmed to match approved architectural plans for buildings that wouldn't break ground until 2021. Others hadn't even been proposed. Of the 61 photographs, 22 depicted locations verifiable as Berlin. Landmarks like the Reichstag and Fernsehturm appeared unchanged, but spliced among them were towers, signage, and digital infrastructure unfamiliar to 2007. Metadata analysis confirmed chemical consistency with early 2000s Polaroid stock. Yet in one image, a billboard displays a campaign for the 2036 Berlin Olympics, a bid Germany wouldn't officially announce until 2029. Even stranger, a graffiti tag in the background of another image matched a Berlin artist's work from 2032. None of these details could be faked, unless the photographer had access to blueprints, designs, and metadata that didn't exist yet. Initial media interest was strong. Berliner Morgenpost ran a front-page teaser, Koffer aus der Zukunft. But by the end of that week, the photos were gone. The newspaper retracted the story, citing errors in sourcing. The suitcase was moved from the BK Evidence Archive in late 2009. Chain of custody records end there. A retired customs agent later claimed the case had been flagged Kronos Blue and reassigned to a joint EU-US task force. That task force has never been acknowledged. The freelance journalist who broke the story, Matthias Gruber, was found dead in his apartment on October 3, 2007. Cause: carbon monoxide poisoning. His laptop had been wiped. His notes were never recovered. His sister claimed he had started dreaming in places that didn't exist. She never found the photos. Some of the photos bore the same serial numbers as a later case. In October 1943, the USS Eldridge allegedly disappeared from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The experiment, according to unofficial logs, was meant to test electromagnetic field cloaking. Instead, it triggered something else. Crew members claimed they blacked out. Others described a green flash. When the ship reappeared minutes later, some sailors were missing. Others were embedded in the hull. The project's name: Operation Rainbow, its legacy, classified echoes and buried testimonies. Declassified maintenance records show the Eldridge had undergone equipment retrofits in September 1943, adding Tesla coils and high-capacitance generators never seen in standard Navy design. Unofficial crew logs, preserved by relatives, describe a drill labeled Field B Test. Weather reports that day noted an anomalous pressure drop at the yard, localized and unexplained. A 1980 interview with Alfred Beilek, a self-identified participant, included detailed descriptions of falling sideways through light. He named crewmen who later appeared on psychiatric leave lists. One sailor's widow produced a 1944 letter in which her husband wrote, "I was gone longer than the clocks say. My watch is still missing time." That letter is now part of a private museum archive. Officially, the U.S. Navy denies any such experiment occurred. No records exist under that name. Witnesses who spoke out were either reassigned or later declared mentally unfit. Bielik's public appearances dropped off after 1990. He claimed he'd been reoriented. In 2003, a request under the Freedom of Information Act for the Eldridge's refit blueprints was denied on national security grounds, despite the ship being decommissioned since 1968. Two crewmen, Edward Cameron and James Duncan, were committed in 1945. Their files were sealed until 2012. Redacted pages describe episodes of nonlinear memory collapse and geometric vertigo. Both died without ever giving public statements. A third sailor disappeared en route to testify in a veterans' inquiry. His car was found near a Maryland naval depot, empty. He missed his daughter's graduation. Some historians argue the entire Philadelphia experiment was Cold War-era psychological warfare, disinformation meant to mask real naval research. But one survivor named a scientist who appears in Case 9. On the morning of April 17, 1996, a maintenance crew discovered a man unconscious behind a service shed at Hyde Park, London. He wore a full-body flight suit made of polymer mesh and graphite filament, materials untraceable to any known military contractor at the time. His pupils were dilated, skin temperature was elevated, and beneath his suit, a thin membrane ran along his spine, embedded with ceramic nodes. He carried no identification. Scotland Yard's forensics report classified the suit as non-standard flight-grade armor. No zippers, no seams. It molded to his body like an exoskin. Material analysis later revealed the polymers matched a compound not registered until a 2025 EU aviation patent, filed nearly 3 decades later. A wristband bore an alphanumeric string, GNL7 421AZH. Analysts linked it to a Geneva-based materials lab, one decommissioned in 1985. The man had a faint scar along his scalp. A magnetic scan revealed 2 implanted microstructures, identical in shape to future neural interface designs. When a junior technician scanned his retinas, the system returned. No match. Unknown species flag triggered. 2 days later, the body and the suit were transferred to RAF Northolt under a sealed order. The police report was amended, the word unidentified replaced with vagrant. No follow-up. All digital images from the forensic lab were deleted by system malfunction. The technician who scanned his eyes was reassigned to desk duty and placed under NDA. She declined all interviews. In 2001, she wrote a single line in an anonymous online post. "He wasn't from anywhere we know." The man never regained consciousness. Blood work revealed no antibodies, no dental history, and genetic markers that did not align with any known ethnic baseline. His body was not returned. His fingerprint data was overwritten in the Interpol archive. The technician who found him kept one small artifact, a chip from his belt. It no longer activates. She missed her wedding after the reassignment. His wristband bore a Geneva lab code, matching case 3. In August 2010, a family hiking in White River National Forest near Vail, Colorado, captured footage that would never be shown publicly again. Their GoPro, strapped to a child's chest, recorded 38 minutes of trail walking. But in minute 14, something unusual occurred. A man appears ahead, staring silently into the trees. 37 seconds later, the same man appears again, crossing behind them. Same clothes, same posture, 2 versions, 1 scene. The footage was taken on a Hero HD model with no known editing capability. The family uploaded it to a local wildlife forum 3 days later. Members noticed the anomaly immediately. Frame-by-frame playback confirmed no cuts, jumps, or overlays. A digital forensics firm in Denver validated the original file hash. No splicing, no digital tampering. The man appears twice, from 2 angles, occupying terrain that made cross re-entry impossible. Even more puzzling, he seems to look toward the camera the second time. His expression is calm, intentional. Freeze-frame enhancement revealed a patch on his left sleeve. ZS 2047 BR, partially torn. The patch matches a format used in surveillance designations from a private or aerospace firm, one founded in 2029. 1 week later, the family removed the footage, citing privacy concerns. They had been contacted by a media rights acquisition group representing an unnamed archival preservation foundation. The footage was licensed, then pulled. The child's GoPro was lost during a supposed relocation. An anonymous post on a drone hobbyist forum claimed to have downloaded the raw clip. That account was deleted within 24 hours. The family signed a binding NDA. They moved out of Colorado in 2011. Neighbors reported that the father had become increasingly paranoid. Cameras appeared outside their home. His former employer confirmed he quit without notice. A surviving screenshot was leaked in 2014. On closer inspection, the man's face is visible. He matches a security profile captured in Berlin in 2037, on the day of an infrastructure breach. He never looked away, but a copy leaked, and the face appears again in 2037 surveillance. In February 2024, a Swiss academic archive released a box mislabeled Applied Optics. Inside was a worn red notebook with embossed initials, HG. It belonged to Dr. Helmut Geller, a theoretical physicist at the University of Zurich, who vanished without explanation in 1980. The journal wasn't optical theory. It described loops, time recursion, light-fold structures. Page 73 bore a single header, Return Loop Causality Events. Case 7D. Below it, a handwritten phrase appeared. They fold the light to break the surface. The same phrase found in the Montauk memoir. The Geller journal included dozens of equations, describing closed time-like curves, gravitational lensing, and frequency entanglement. One entry predicted a 2030 quantum resonance threshold that would later be independently confirmed by ETH Zurich Labs, 46 years after he wrote it. 2 sketches matched components, photographed in the Montauk chair. Story 3. One coordinate set pointed to the decommissioned Geneva lab, listed in the vertical man's wristband. Story 6. Even more disturbing. One diagram resembles the Vail footage's frame overlay. The angles match. A chemical analysis of the ink shows isotopic ratios inconsistent with 1970s Swiss production, but similar to ink variants patented in 2029. The university originally listed the journal as lost in relocation in 1981. No librarian recalled seeing it before 2024. A full scan was uploaded. It stayed online for 16 hours. Then the page vanished. The hosting server was subpoenaed by a Swiss defense contractor under Article 184 of national security law. A U.S. agency requested mutual assistance days later. Classification level, Blue Tier 3. The Geller family denied knowledge of the journal, but his niece admitted her uncle had mailed her a sealed envelope in 1980 with a warning, "If the box arrives too soon, destroy it." She never opened it. Inside was a smaller notebook with a hand-drawn circuit labeled Loop Anchor. It matched a patent filed in 2023 by a company founded in Berlin, the same company that purchased the Chronos suitcase. She missed the journal's release by 3 days. She died on February 12th. This is the same lab named in Case 3. On September 11th, 1997, a man called into Coast to Coast AM, the syndicated late-night radio show hosted by Art Bell. His voice trembled. He claimed to be a former employee at a facility not on the map, west of Groom Lake, Nevada. He said the base was conducting experiments that opened folds, not gates. Seconds before the signal dropped, he screamed one phrase: "They fold the light to break the surface." The same phrase found in the Montauk memoir, Story 3, and Geller's journal, Story 8. The broadcast went silent. 90 seconds into the call, coinciding with an unexplained power outage affecting satellite relay uplinks. The station's backup generator failed at the exact moment. The incident was never repeated before or after. In 2023, a digitized reel of the original radio show was recovered from a private archive and enhanced. Heart rate modulation analysis revealed erratic patterns, consistent with physical trauma, not panic. A voice print scan conducted by a university audio lab produced a partial match. Edward Cameron, one of the sailors institutionalized after the Philadelphia experiment, Story 5. Further correlation showed vocal micro-tremors matching someone in his late 80s. Cameron would have been 86 at the time of the call. But the caller's knowledge of black site architecture was more precise than any available declassified map, including 4-digit corridor codes used in a now-demolished test wing. Art Bell was contacted by unnamed parties within 48 hours. He later claimed, off-air, that he had been instructed never to replay the segment in full. In 2002, a CD release of the show included the entire episode, except for those 90 seconds. When asked, Goldar, the production label responded with audio fidelity issues. The technician who enhanced the reel in 2023 had their university contract terminated within the month. Edward Cameron was never located. The Veterans Administration denied he ever existed, but a signature from ECAM 7 was logged in the Montauk Station's access panel, dated 1981, same as the date in Duncan Cameron's memoir. Same as the phrase repeated by the caller, "They fold the light." He never gave his real name. Voice print matched to a missing person from Case 5. On the night of March 6, 2022, a man broke into the Skagerrak Particle Research Facility outside Oslo, Norway. He bypassed 2 access gates, disarmed a biometric lock, and entered Sub-Level 2 without alerting motion sensors. He was unarmed, unaggressive. He walked straight into the control center and said one sentence before being tackled by security. "Stop the loop. It doesn't close." He was carrying no ID, only a worn security badge. The date, printed on it, Aug 19, 2091. Evidence lab technicians reviewed the internal surveillance footage. At timestamp 3:70:14, the man moves down the corridor. At 17:28, just 14 seconds later, he vanishes mid-stride. No distortion, no light, just absence. Infrared picked up nothing. Proximity sensors continued recording an object in motion for 4.3 more seconds after visual contact ended. The badge he carried bore a classification code, ZH-PHD, matching the same Geneva lab code from story number 6 and story number 8. A smudge on the back revealed a partial fingerprint. Interpol ran a scan, no match in any living database, but the print matched a smudged thumbprint on a photo inside the Chronos suitcase, story number 4. Suppression. The incident was not reported to the Norwegian public. Internal lab staff were instructed to submit to memory-assisted interviews and signed NDAs under Clause L7 of EU Particle Infrastructure Act. One physicist leaked an email describing the man's words. He wasn't warning us. He was stopping himself. 3 days later, that physicist resigned. His whereabouts are unknown. A second researcher later disclosed a note left behind in the intruder's handwriting. It read, "This version can't hold. The next one starts now." Consequence. The lab's lattice injector project was delayed for 14 months. When it resumed, the original timing protocols were discarded, replaced by a safety override nicknamed internally as Cameron's fail-safe. No personnel ever spoke of the man again. But in August 2023, a captured drone image showed a man in a field near the Oslo compound, walking toward the facility. Same build, same gait, same jacket, same person, or maybe not yet. He never entered. He just watched. The badge he wore matched the one worn by the vertical man in story number 6. And the date on his ID was 86 years in the future. If time can fold, then memory can lie. If people have returned from years not yet lived, then history is no longer a record, it's a reconstruction. In every one of these stories, something breached the known. A phrase, a fingerprint, a building that hadn't been built yet. Most were erased, a few survived, and 1 or 2 were never meant to exist in this version of the timeline at all. They were silenced, not disproven, hidden, not refuted, and each one left a scar, a vanished witness, a funeral missed, a name deleted. So what do we make of them, all 10 connected by fingerprints, dates, words, by the idea that something or someone is trying to correct a fracture in causality by walking through it? One could argue none of this is real, that it's misremembered history, broken hardware, damaged files, a cascade of coincidence. But the records say otherwise. They fold the light. They leave the surface. They return before they left. And if even one of them is real, then time is no longer a line. It's a loop with edges, cracks, entrances. So ask yourself, if you saw someone appear where no one stood before, would you call it impossible? Or would you check the date? Would you archive these files? Or erase them for good?